All right, direct from Stockholm, Sweden is Karl-Magnus, who's the senior producer on Battlefield Bad Company. Carl, thanks for joining me on the show today.
Thank you.
So I'm excited about Battlefield. I was a big fan of it on the original Xbox and obviously on PC for many years. What can we expect from the new Battlefield Bad Company?
Well, Battlefield Bad Company is the first time we in the Battlefield franchise has both single player and multiplayer. So we worked a lot on the multiplayer, but we also spent almost equally amount of time on the single player component as well, which to us is very exciting at least.
Yeah, you have. So now you've got the single player. So how are how is it building a ground up new single player experience for this franchise?
Well, it's definitely very exciting as a developer because it's so new to us, but it builds on the same fundamental parts as a multiplayer game, meaning the sandbox experience that we keep talking about. So it's basically a big open environment where you can run around as a player and do whatever you want. If you see a vehicle, you can jump in. If you want to run over to somewhere else and flank off, you can do that. And it's the same idea that the single player is built upon. Now we have to control the player a bit more, of course, to bring it into specific choke points and tell them what to do and what not to do, etc. But it's the same fundamentals. So that's what we started out building.
Yeah, with Battlefield, I mean, it's a huge title, and a lot of people really are excited about the open world that you've created. So I know that they're interested in how you're going to make that migration to the single player. Let's talk about the multiplayer campaign and what you're doing there to innovate.
Absolutely. The multiplayer part of Battlefield Bad Company is something that we're now rolling out more. We've been a bit quiet about it for quite some time, but you shouldn't be confused. It's an equally big part as the single player in this actual game. And the biggest change in the multiplayer right now from the other Battlefield games that we've seen before is the new interactive environment with all the destruction that we have in there.
So now people, in addition to shooting each other and blowing each other up, you actually can blow up some of the landscape and some of the buildings?
Absolutely. You can actually blow up quite a bit of it. A large part of the environment and the houses and the structures, the ground, the vegetation can be destroyed. And all of this leads up to more creative ways to take out your enemies, pretty much.
Tell us about some of the in the single and the multiplayer. What do you have for some of the new weapons and maybe some of the new vehicles that you can tell me about?
I mean, it's a typical Battlefield game. So we have vehicles both in land, air, sea, all of those kind of categories, and we have different, types of vehicles, light vehicles, heavy vehicles, etc. And in a similar way, there's a lot of different weapons, both that you can access by only if you play single player, but if you play multiplayer, there will be it's class-based. So the different kits will have different weapons. But there are also more weapons that you can unlock over time if you keep at it and you rank up and these kind of things.
Because I'm a big fan of flying the helicopter, as I was in the original, or the older Battlefield. So I assume my heli is going to be back, and I'm going to have more to choose from.
Absolutely. I mean, the maps that we have in Bad Company, we've listened to what people like about Battlefield, and there's two quite clear distinction of players. Some people like the infantry-heavy maps, and some people like more of the huge-scale vehicle maps. So we have built about the maps about half and half. So some of them are very infantry-focused, and some of them are very vehicle-focused. And if you like playing helicopters, you can definitely going to like the big open-scale maps that we have with all the vehicles.
Can you give me a sense for the largest map that you're working on? How big is that roughly in scale?
Well, I mean, an average map is something like 2 by 2 kilometers in the actual active area that you play around with. But we have some really big maps in single player as well, which are 4 by 4 kilometers.
That's pretty darn big.
Yeah, it's pretty big. It's a big area to fill with things.
Now, one of the games that came out recently is Frontline's Fuel of War, which a lot of people looked at and said that's very similar to Battlefield. So I assume you guys have taken a look at that and said, oh, that's kind of interesting, and you guys are going to obviously iterate more on what you've done. Mm-hmm. So are you excited to finally bring the game out?
Absolutely. I mean, bringing Battlefield Bad Company to the market is something I've been looking forward for a long time. I've been working on this project for quite some time because this project has not only been about building the game, but also building the actual Frostbite game engine, which had led up to this is the first title that we actually published with that engine.
And what are some of the differences, and what are we going to see in this engine?
Well, I mean, we built it from ground up because we needed an engine that really could, what we thought of, build a next-gen game. When we started out with this engine, there was a lot of conversation that next-gen this and resolution that and amount of polygons here, and this was before the 360 came out and way before the PlayStation 3 was even really, any specs or anything came out. But we felt like all the titles that were starting to come out when the 360 actually appeared, they were really good, but was there something groundbreaking with them? Were they actually next-gen? And we felt that we need to take it one step further, and hence the idea with the destruction and everything. But in order to realize that in our Battlefield environments, we needed new technology. So that's why we started out and building the Frostbite engine.
So this has a brand new, and a lot of people may not know this, but all the games run on engines. There's all sorts of different engines out there, but you guys have built your own engine, which is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, it is. I mean, DICE has a long history of being strong in the technology department, and it's something that we have done with all our Battlefield games. So to us, it felt natural. Now, it's a lot of, as a developer, there's a lot of angst involved in building a new engine as well. So it's not that easy than just building an engine, of course. But now with Battlefield Bad Company, we're starting to reap the rewards of actually having a new engine, because it enables us to have these huge open environments, vehicles, infantry, destruction, everything at the same time.
Yeah, it's pretty. You guys are the original huge, major scale, Battlefield. So I know folks are excited about that. I went over and I took a look through some of the communities that have built up around that. Has it surprised you, some of the community that has built up around your titles?
Not surprised me. I mean, actually, before I started working at DICE, I was a Battlefield player myself, and it's one of the reasons I tried to seek work at DICE. So I can definitely see why people get so excited about it, because there's one fundamental thing that is common in the Battlefield games, and that is it's up to the player's creativity and imagination regarding how they want to play the game. Sure, you can just run around and you can use the assault rifle and you can just try to shoot people in the head and to get the maximum amount of scores. But if you actually apply some tactical thought to it, or some just imaginative regarding, I want to play C4 in the Jeep and drive it into the village and blow it up from a distance, or try to wing walk on a B-17 or something like that. That's the spirit of Battlefield. That's what we want in our games.
Yeah, it's interesting now. So I know a lot of Battlefield people are. When you said that you were a player yourself and then you went to work at DICE, they kind of had a sigh of relief there, because it's like, good God, there's somebody who's in there that knows what they're doing. So I know that folks are excited about that.
Yeah, actually, there's quite a few in here. I mean, the whole modding community from the PC side has been a great thing for us, because there's a lot of people coming from there that knows a lot and are really interested. And I usually, when you talk to people about starting out in the games industry, I always say that the most important thing is that you have a really big interest, that you're on fire, you really want to do this. That's more important than anything else. And if you have that, that's what's going to get you really far. And yeah. That's really good for us.
That's really going to drive you forward. Now, you talked a little bit about the PC and the community, the modding community, which is huge. What is it like developing the title and then making the controls work on the console versus a PC?
It definitely is a big difference. I mean, what we like to call the second-to-second gameplay, I mean, the actual running, gunning, shooting, aiming, it's very, very important for all the Battlefield games. And this is one of the reasons why we only develop Battlefield Bad Company for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, because we don't want to make it into one of those, quickly ported games over to a PC platform and the controls, become something, half decent. So in the first iterations now with the Frostbite engine, we felt that it's the right thing to do to only focus on two platforms to make it into a true next-gen console game. And part of that is what you're getting at, is that you have to focus a lot on the actual controls for each specific platforms to make the most out of it in the game.
Now, I want to talk to you about the closed beta. You've got a beta coming up, which must be pretty exciting for you.
Oh, it's really exciting. We're on toes here. I don't know what you say in English. We're very edgy about it here.
When does that happen, and how do people get in on it?
Well, we're going to distribute keys through or tickets through IGN that people can get through them.
Yeah, I'm going to get a couple as well to give away on my blog, so we'll do that. Now, as a developer, it's got to kind of be interesting, because you had to decide a few months back that, we're going to stop and we're going to maybe split off our code to create a beta. Yet you need to simultaneously keep marching forward. So what kind of data are you hoping to collect from the beta?
I mean, there's basically two things from this. I mean, the Battlefield has always been about trying to make the most of the online experience, because that's the pedigree of the franchise. It started out as a multiplayer only, and it's a huge important part of Bad Company. An example of that is that we always run with dedicated servers, so you don't have to run peer-to-peer or anything like that. You actually run against data centers spread out over the world that we make sure are up and running, so you always can find a game and you're getting matchmaked against the same amount of players, the same ranked players that you need to have. And we need to test this. It's really important for us to make sure that these centers are running appropriately and everyone can get into it. That's one key part of the beta. The other part is even more important actually, is that we need to hear from the community what people think about the game. This can be simple things like balancing issues, because we've had issues with that in the past on the PC. Is this shotgun overpowered, or something like that. We want to hear from the community about these issues. But then generally also what people think about the game. Let's get some feedback from the people out there, from the consumers, from our gamers. I want to hear what they think about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun, because gamers love betas. Of course, we had the Halo beta last year, the COD4 beta last year. So now we can get excited all about the Battlefield beta, the Battlefield Bad Company beta. When you do these betas, first of all, how long is it going to go for?
I'm not sure. I think the running time is 4 weeks, but don't quote me on that. I'm not really sure, actually.
So it'll be coming up pretty soon, and I'll make sure I make a post on that as well.
Yeah.
It's I know how many players are you going to be supporting it? You talked about the dedicated servers.
Yeah, I mean, we have a new game mode in Battlefield Bad Company that we call Gold Rush, that we just started talking about outside of the studio now, and it's a new idea that we want to bring all the people into the same place, because we are still running with 24 players at the same time. That's the maximum for a server in Bad Company. But we want to utilize those people at the same place at the same time, so we get the maximum amount of destruction, maximum amount of team play, but also just general action and these kind of things. If you played Battlefield before, you know that we have the conquest, and you can be spread out over this huge area, and people are spread out over the bases. But now we keep everything more into an attack and a defend game mode, where everyone is situated more or less at the same place within the map, which makes for much more action.
Yeah, it's just everybody's kind of thrown in at the same place, and they're just going to start beating each other up.
Yep.
Well, Karl, listen, I'm going to let you go, but before I go, I like to ask my guests what their gamer tag is. So can you tell me what your Xbox Live gamer tag is?
Absolutely. It's L-Twin.
L-Twin, and I'll put a link to that up on the blog. And I know people are going to be looking for you in the closed beta, and then eventually when Battlefield Bad Company ships. Which, have you guys announced a date yet, or are we just saying later this year?
Yeah. Sorry, the date for the product?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, no, it's coming summer this year. We don't have an official date just yet.
It's because you got to take all that information you get from the beta and feed it back into the product. So
absolutely,
that's the way that goes. Karl, I appreciate your time, and we'll see you online.
Yeah, thanks a lot.